Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, my friends. This is my beginner guide for Mortal Kombat 1. Mortal Kombat 1 bringing back Mortal Kombat in a very big way, and this guide is to help you out and understand you in your journey in playing the game. Now, for many of you, this may be your first Mortal Kombat game ever. Some of you guys, I know you played plenty of fighting games before, and this is your first foray into Mortal Kombat. And I know some of you guys have already played Mortal Kombat, and it's been a while and you need a refresher. So this video will cover all the main aspects of the game and how the gameplay works. Some of it is truly for true beginners, so I will have everything time-stamped for you, so skip forward to whatever section makes sense for you. If you want to skip ahead, leave a like. It sincerely helps the video out and it'd be very appreciated. And otherwise, let me introduce you to the wide world of Mortal Kombat 1. There's a lot of crazy things going on, not the least of which is the Kameo system, which we'll get into. But for now, let's start with the basics. So here we are starting at the beginning of all things. So Mortal Kombat 1 is a traditional 2D fighting game, although certainly there's quite a few things that differentiate it from other traditional 2D fighters. So first off, just generals of attack. This is what we would call a 4-button game. Now, normally we would call these 1, 2, 3, and 4, but the traditional terms are front punch, front kick, back kick. And generally speaking, as far as the punches go, front punches generally are faster than back punches, but back punches do more damage than front punch, and much the same as far as the kicks go. Back kicks are usually faster than front kicks, but front kicks do more damage or just a little bit slower than back kicks. Like any given fighting game, there's all sorts of moves to go through here. Everyone has their own unique stuff, and we'll go through that in time. The other basic thing here you'll see in many other fighting games is the presence of a meter down below. So the meter, you build it just by playing the game, basically. Doing attacks, taking damage, blocking, doing special moves. This will all build the meter in time. And what do we do with the meter? Well, we spend it on moves that are generally better than our regular moves. Either in a brute force way, just dealing more damage, or maybe giving more utility. Like say Scorpion's classic teleport, if you burn meter on it, it becomes a fake out and nothing actually comes out. So while the enemy's worried about blocking it, you can just come in and throw them instead. And the other meter to worry about is the Kameo meter, which is up top here. And that's a whole other sack of potatoes. So we're going to cover Kameos in its own dedicated section, as it's easily the most wild part of the game. So that all said, now let's cover the basics of offense in Mortal Kombat 1. So now let's talk the basics of offense. So we mentioned at the very beginning of there, we have all sorts of good buttons here, and they're all different for everybody. Everyone has their own unique traits. Like say, for a lot of characters, their stand 3, their back kick, is, well, you know, just a big boot. For Kung Lao, it's a boot into an overhead, so they have to quickly block standing or they'll get hit in the head, right? So everyone has their own unique properties. And that is very much shown to life here through strings. So if we go through the move list here, you're going to notice here, well, this is overwhelming if you've never played a fighting game before, I'm sure, right? There's a lot going on here. But it is simpler than you think. Let's start with this section here. So open palm, body blows, Madam Elbow, and 8 Trigam palm. So in our number nomenclature here, it'd be 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1. And you can see it play out here in game. So 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1. So that is our string. And you can choose to enter as much or as little as you want. You don't have to go for the whole thing. In fact, sometimes it's beneficial not to go for the whole thing. Like say for Kung Lao here. We could go for the whole string, but we might get blown up for it. So 2, 1, 2, even though we'll be negative, we can still block if the opponent chooses to attack. Like say here against Johnny Cage. He'll go for a shadow kick right away. And if we do that part of the string here, everything but the final part, we're good to go, right? We get the block in time. But if we go for the final part, we get beat. So sometimes going for the whole string every single time is not to your benefit. You want to wait out and see what's going to happen. Not the least of which, this is generally how we get combos in this game. So let me show you a fancy combo example here. So this combo we're doing is thanks to all these various strings. We're using multiple strings in this combo. So we use the 2, 1, 2 that we just talked about, right? During this time I hit 2 and 2, I can assess, wow, okay, I definitely have the hit. So I'll go into my special move, launch the enemy. And this spins that meter too, by the way. Now after the move here, we did another string, back to 4. And this string also launches the enemy. So now we're going to use that, float them here with the jump 2 after our launch. Relaunch, and then we're going to use a different string of 1, 2, 1. And 1-2-1 on the ground, you know, it's so-so, but if you manage to get someone in the air, it keeps them floating for a long time. It's part of the string. And then we end with a special move. And that's kind of using all the strings together as sort of the game flow. When specifically going from one combo into another combo into another combo, it's usually doing one string into another string, another string. And many strings have many different properties. Like say, once again, Kung Lao, start with back 3. It has 2 follow-ups. Back 3-3, which is a low, back 3-4, that's an overhead. So now the string series here create a high-low mix-up that you have to deal with. Strings are different than, say, if you play like Street Fighter or something, where you like slowly tap all the various buttons. These guys, you just dial them in right away. You just go 1-2-1, 2-1-2, whatever. You just tap them in all right away. But say if you're looking for the ender, you can tap them in, see how the animation plays out, and then if you like where it's going, then you can hit the final button. So you can pre-dial things in and then wait for the animation to play out and enter the last part of it if you like where it's going or not. So that's the basics of strings. Everyone has their own different strings. They all do wildly different things as character to character. Unfortunately, it is upon you to figure out what every character does. Now, besides strings, everyone also has special moves, naturally enough, right? And special moves are very much at the heart of the game. It lets everyone do their fun, cool things that help you win the match. And we mentioned at the very beginning how we have our meter, right? So the base special moves are good and meter makes them better. Like say that launcher we showed here. By itself, it'll deal damage, but we need to spend that meter to make it launch and then get our various combos from it. And that's sort of the lifeblood of special moves in offense. The more meter you have, the more meter you can spend on the various special moves in the game. And then, well, then the more damage you'll do and the closer you are to winning. If you want the biggest and best combos that do the most damage, almost assuredly, you will have to start spending some of that meter. Now, sometimes meters can be used for damage, sometimes they can be used for defense. Many characters have various moves that they don't do much for combo ability, but if you enhance them and spend meter, they'll have armor instead. So when people are attacking you, you can just bulldog your way through it and get your damage in and get them off you, more importantly. So sometimes you want to spend meter on offense, sometimes you will save it for defense, but generally speaking, meter is the lifeblood of the game. Now, another basic offensive mechanic here is the Fatal Blow. In any other game, you would call this your super move. So this unlocks when you're at 30% or less health, and the game is not subtle about letting you know you have it. So what it is a one-off and away. So if the move connects, that's it for the rest of the game. So you can connect it in match 1, like round 1, and round 3, it'll still be gone. You only get one use of it. If you whiff or it is blocked, it will eventually regenerate though. So by themselves, these are basically the single most damaging moves you can do. Like, they do a lot of damage for sure. They're very visually impressive for sure as well, and they're a good way to win a game. So for lack of a more elegant term, this is your comeback mechanic. So if you're getting beat up, this is your reward for getting beat up, and hopefully you can turn the tables on your enemy. And that's the absolute basic of offense. Strings, buttons, normals, everyone has their own unique things. Even something as basic as like towards and a button. For Melina, that's a double overhead, right? That's a very important tool, keep the opponent on their feet. One thing to note about meter, while I would not call this a super move necessarily, certain characters are keyed to have moves that take 2 meters. So say Melina, her low psi EX does more damage than the regular, right? Knocks down, goes full screen. The regular does not. But her standing psi takes 2 bars. Why does it take 2 bars instead of 1? So 1, it destroys projectiles. So if you're in that fireball war, well, then you definitely win. And secondly, the animation you might notice here, pretty elaborate, right, from Melina. It knocks the enemy down in a crumple state. And while in this crumple state, you get a full combo. So easy do, right? Like, if you want that damage, there's some damage. 30% plus for a full screen projectile, not too bad, especially if it destroyed another projectile on the way in. So not everyone has a double bar move in this game. It's a fairly new concept for Mortal Kombat. It's not something we really see a lot of in the other games. But for a lot of characters with the double bar move, this is like potentially game-winning moves. So that's the absolute basics of offense. Let's talk the basics of defense. Now, let's start on the basics of defense. So Mortal Kombat is a block button game. So unlike, say, other 2D fighters, Street Fighter, or even other 3D fighters too, like Tekken, a lot of games are like back to block. And Mortal Kombat, no, you actually have to hold the actual block button. So you cannot move at all while that's happening. And easy enough concept. The thing that really differentiates Mortal Kombat as far as defense goes compared to other franchises is the chip damage. So everything does chip damage in Mortal Kombat. Even in, say, games like Street Fighter, it depends on the situation. Even then, there might be only special moves or certain things need to be fulfilled for chip damage to happen. And this game, everything you do deals damage to you. Even if you successfully block, you will take damage. And yes, you can absolutely die from that. Other franchises over the years, they sort of removed that as a feature. But Mortal Kombat keeps to the old ways. And if you block too much, not only will you take damage, you will absolutely lose and die in the end due to it. Now, to note, there is a mechanic called Last Breath in this game. So if a move that would chip you out would kill you, if you have a meter, it will just take the meter instead. So you'll survive, but you'll lose the bar. And as many bars as you have in stock is basically how many death blows you can prevent. So if you have 2 bars in stock, you can save one thing, and then the third one will kill you. Legitimately, there is an aspect to this where if you are losing the round already, you might as well just take the hit, and rather than lose the bar, you can keep it for next round. But, you know, that's fighting game 101, right? But that's the basics of blocking. There is 3 kinds of blocks in this game versus the usual 2. Stand block, crouch block, and up block, which will get its own section we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, another important aspect of the game, naturally, is combos, right? And what do we do when we're getting comboed? You don't want to get comboed. And thankfully, one defensive mechanic we have is the combo breaker. So this is not a cheap mechanic. It does take all 3 of your bars. So if you have anything less than full meter, you cannot do a combo breaker, but having a combo breaker will very much save your life. Now, you might notice here, it's our pal, the Cameo, doing it. So to do this, all we have to do is hold forward and block. And while we're being hit while holding forward and block, then the next available hit, the Cameo will come and save your life. Now, for whatever reason, if the Cameo is not available, like say if it's already on screen, then it cannot be used for the combo breaker. But otherwise, it's as simple as, once again, just holding forward and block while you're being hit, and the next available hit, you will break the combo. So, expensive, yes, but better to burn 3 bars and live than, you know, keep your meter and lose the game, right? Also, you build meter very fast in Mortal Kombat, so one thing to keep in mind is you will eventually, through the course of a match, have the 3 bars to break that combo. So defensively, mechanics are mostly pretty basic other than the reversals, which we'll talk about later in the video. A big part of Mortal Kombat is just keeping your wits about you, because guessing which way to block is a big part of how this game works. So now let's talk the varying attack heights. This is very important. This is where Mortal Kombat is the most different from other 2D fighting games. So attacks come in 4 flavors in this game. We have lows, and well, funnily enough, lows hit low, right? We have mids, we have overheads, and we have highs. So what's the difference between a high and an overhead? So specifically, an overhead can hit crouching people, a high cannot. And no matter what, highs can never hit someone who is crouching, period. They can't do it. Like even something here like this uppercut, which like basically goes through Katana's body, right? Because she is crouching, but if the move is a high, it won't work. Anything that's a high, no matter what it is, can never, ever hit someone who is just doing a regular crouch. Now, specifically to note, if you are crouching and blocking, then highs will connect. They cannot hurt you, but they will connect. You'll be forced to take the chip damage from it. So that's sort of at the whole essence of the game. When you're blocking, well, obviously, you know, you're blocking, but you are blocking very specific heights. When you are stand blocking, you can block highs, overheads, and mids. So here we go, high, overhead, mid. Gotcha, right? All blocked, except lows, not so much. If you don't watch your toes, you're gonna get blown up big time. That is the danger of stand blocking. And crouch blocking, you can block lows just fine. You can also block mids just fine. Overheads, not so much. That's sort of the deal here. Highs, yeah, you can block highs. They won't hit ever, but you can block them, right? But that's kind of the name of the game here. But that's sort of the name of the game here. The concept of lows and overheads. Not every character can do a big low overhead game, but you will find in Mortal Kombat, compared to any other 2D franchise, the concept of having to guess low or overhead and having to react appropriately is much more pronounced than any other 2D fighter. Like our boy Rain here. Rain is nominally like the fireball character, right? Like compete from full screen, all sorts of crazy things. And he has a double hitting overhead that launches in the full combo. So if you don't watch your noggin, he's going to blow you up, right? Like, that's scary. That's a lot of damage. And you're like, well, sir, I believe I'll just stand block against rain and not have to deal with the overhead. And hey, fair enough, except his sweep is a really long range sweep, as you can see here. And depending on cameo usage, he can get full combos off a different kind of low. So that's at the heart of the game. Even a character normally keyed to want to be full screen and throw fireballs and all that kind of stuff can still mix you up really bad. But that's a big part of the offense flow in this game. Pretty much all the fastest attacks in the games are all highs. And a lot of the best attacks in the games are highs. But since they're highs, you can freely neutral duck them. And if you can freely neutral duck them, you can freely punish people. Like, you can just let that stuff go over your head, and you can do all sorts of various things to them. And conversely, since this is such a big part of the game, and a lot of people know that I can do just any various ducking attack and beat a wide variety of all these highs, that's why the mid attack is generally so valuable. Yeah, mids are slower than highs, sure, but if someone's neutral ducking and try to play all these gimmicks and avoid highs, the mid will clean their clock. So mids, a lot of times, you know, they're slower, but this is very crucial to the whole kind of guessing game, guessing flow of offense in Mortal Kombat 1. Highs are your most reliable high-speed attacks, yet they are very easily defeated by any kind of crouching attack. Mids will clean the clock of anyone who's trying to neutral duck and bypass high offense. A lot of lows are very good at curtailing movement because people are just not standing and blocking, right? If you keep tapping their toes, eventually they're going to take enough damage. You're like, well, I better slow down my roll for a second. And once you tap their toes enough and they're just crouch blocking, that's when you start busting out those overheads. So it's kind of multi-tiered offense, and it's very much at the heart of what Mortal Kombat is. In this way, it's actually more like a 3D fighting game like Tekken or Virtua Fighter than it is, say, like a Street Fighter or Guilty Gear. This is super critically important. This is so much of what the heart of what Mortal Kombat is a fighting game. Understanding the various attack heights, how you get around the various attack heights, and all that. Because once you know enough to start this, you know, spamming crouch moves against highs, and they start going for mids, and then you go back to highs because your highs are faster than their mids, and then you beat them out, right? Like, this is the magic of Mortal Kombat. So hopefully that all makes sense to you. It might take a while to wrap your head around it, but that's very key to how just the game works. So now we're going to talk about the flawless block mechanic. So this is returning from Mortal Kombat 11, although maybe not as busted as it was in Mortal Kombat 11. But it's a simple mechanic you'll see in a lot of fighting games. So as we discussed earlier, if you block any move, you're going to take chip damage. Out of the gate, one of the things about flawless block is you don't take chip damage. This covers singleton hits, and also say if you block a whole string. So here we have 3 separate hits. If we flawless block the first hit of the string, we will take no chip damage from any part of the string. So how does this work? It's simple and incredibly difficult at the same time. So all you have to do is basically block a couple frames right before the move hits. So the strict timing is definitely there, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, don't feel bad if you struggle with it. Even the pros can have problems with it, right? Like, it is very small time frame, and sometimes even if you think you have it perfectly, if you're even 1 frame off, you won't get it. So it prevents you from taking chip. That's always great. Another thing is certain moves are keyed that they might normally otherwise be safe or advantage even on block, but if you flawless block it, it'll then either become negative or punishable on block. Like, let's take your standard uppercut. Very high damage move, right? And if you block it, you have a lot of pushback. Like, it's negative technically, but negative from so far away, it does not matter. However, if we flawless block it instead, we have a lot less pushback. And not only do we have less pushback, the numbers have changed. It goes from safe to punishable on block. So there we go. Now that was a proper punish, right? So in a situation before we'd just be blown back, we got guaranteed damage. So being able to time it is very important. Also, any given string, you can flawless block at any point of it, even if it's airtight. So even if there's no gap, I can block the first hit and then flawless block the second one, and then say remove the chip from the successive hits of the string. This is especially important for moves that are multi-hitting that are different frame data if you flawless block the final hit. This is perhaps most pronounced with the Darius assist. So this move by itself is wildly powerful. It's quick for what it is, eats up a gigantic chunk of the screen, and if you block it all, you're just pushed out. So like, no matter what, the person calling into area sort of wins out, right? But once again, we can flawless block any part of this. This is all a true block string. Like, we cannot do anything and try to sneak in a hit in between the hits. However, since the hits come in at a fixed interval, I know basically the exact timing of when the final hit's going to come in, and it becomes easier, not necessarily guaranteed, but easier to flawless block it. However, if I flawless block the last hit, then a punish actually is guaranteed. So if I can get that timing down, I definitely get a big benefit out of it. Once again, it's one of those deals, it's different move to move, so there's no guarantees or anything. But check the old frame data, go to advanced view here once you're in the menus. It'll usually tell you if there's any distinction between the flawless block and the regular block. Like right here, the uppercut for Raiden once again here, normal block, -3, flawless block, -13. Now here we're going to talk a new mechanic for Mortal Kombat 1. That is the up block. So normally stand block, crouch block, but now look to the skies because we're up blocking. So what is the up block? Well, it's something to help curtail jump spam for one. And as we talked about earlier, this is a game more than most fighting games where you having to worry about lows and overheads is a much bigger deal because most of the cast can mix you up in that way. Now jump attacks too, this is the main thing here. Mortal Kombat jump attacks traditionally are a bit stronger than how they are in other fighting games. Because unlike, a Street Fighter or Guilty Gear or whatever, there's no invincible uppercuts. There's no sure you can, sure we have the actual uppercut, right? But if you do it a little too late, you're going to lose. Like if I have perfect timing, sure, gotcha, smoked you out of the air. But if I'm a little slow on the uptake, I get beat. And some characters have very powerful jump attacks, right? Very powerful jump offense. So I can block, sure. And the thing about you blocking a jumping attack is you are almost certainly at disadvantage, or straight up, the enemy can just go into a string right away. So you still lose your turn. But against the up block, you notice here that triggers a little notification on the screen. So normally, if I block the jump in, I'm pushed back a bit, I'm definitely at disadvantage. If I do an up block, there's no more disadvantage. There is effectively no recovery for me. I effectively just recover in place, and that makes pretty much every jump attack in the game punishable if you up block it. So if you jump, bad news bears, because I'm going to get some decent combos on you, right? So watch out. Don't jump spam too much. Now, it's not just jumps. So say this attack right here, this is an overhead from smoke, right? It also catches all overheads in general, not just jumping attacks. So if I know this is coming, I can up block this, and it's going to be the same deal. And for characters that are tricky here, like Smoke has a string that is low into overhead. If I know this is coming, I can up block that overhead. Don't let me catch you being predictable with this stuff is basically what I'm trying to say here. Because if you are, then it's going to blow you up real bad. Okay, so that's some incredible strengths, right? So what on earth is the weakness, if any? So the big thing here, one, obviously, it counts as a stand block in the way that you cannot block lows. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to up block, and I'm going to let go of the block button immediately. So even if I'm only flicking it for a split second, I am now stuck in this animation. Like, I cannot get out. And also, while you're in this animation, if you get thrown, you cannot tech or in any way possible get out of the throw. And the other thing about throws, so if you attempt to up block an attack and you get thrown, the throw will actually do more damage than it normally ever would. Normally, throws do 11%. And if you get thrown here, 11%. But if you get thrown while up blocking, as you can see here, throw punish, the damage is going to be much more substantial. So that's basically it. If you bait this out, you're going to get a much more damaging throw than you otherwise would. Or if you have a low starter or whatever, then you can go into whatever combo because they're stuck in stand block. But yeah, so this is designed to be strong, yes, but it is also designed with deliberate counterplay. Still, it's an interesting mechanic. For people who are just overly happy with jump-ins nonstop, once people start doing this, you'll probably stop jumping as much and keep your feet on the ground, right? So, interesting, powerful mechanic. Now, let's talk the basic throw. Obviously, the basic throw is an important part of any fighting game because you have one person who's just too defensive, won't engage, get to block everything, and then say, nah, get out of my face, I'm going to throw you, right? So, the thing about Mortal Kombat is the basic throw is a little different. It's still an important building block, but one, there's two basic throws. There's forward and back. The back throw is your throw, and the forward throw is your cameo throw. So whoever your cameo is will do their throw. Cameo throws are a little different. A regular back throw, as in your character throw, is always 11% no matter what. Cameo throws are different character to character. So some do 11%, some do 12, some do 13. I believe Sonya does 14. She's the most damaging, right? So there is some damage variance there. And they also dump you out at different parts of the screen. Some leave you close, some leave you far. So the cameo throw is different depending on your cameo. And the thing about throws being various different animations, you can also interact with them in cameos in very fun ways and have the cameo interrupt your throw, but that's a video for another day perhaps. So the big thing about throws is obviously you can escape throws, right? But the thing about Mortal Kombat specifically is you have to know what direction you're being thrown in, left or right. So say I'm getting thrown here by the enemy Sindel. I happen to know advance in my heart of hearts that it's going to be a back throw. Therefore, I can escape it with a 1 or a 3 press. The thing about Mortal Kombat specifically is the throw tech window, while it's not huge, it is generous compared to some other 2D fighters. So if you know for a fact, you see that throw and you know which way to break, you will pretty much always break it. Now, one thing to note here, that's back throw, right? So back throw, 1 or 3 break. Forward throw, which is the cameo throw, that will always be broken with a 2 or a 4. So some people would say this is a 50-50, not quite, because that removes player agency. If they throw you in the corner, say, you know, what are they probably going to throw you? They're probably going to throw you back into the corner, not out of the corner. Therefore, a 2 break is much more likely than a 1 break in this way. So you got to keep that in mind, right? Front or back throw, one or the other in a lot of situations is more preferable for the enemy player. Therefore, the throw tech is easier to guess. Now, that said, of course, they know that you know that, right? Like, so they'll purposely do the wrong throw, as it were, to make sure you don't tech it. But yeah, there's an element of player mind game to it. Now, another thing, if you are holding block, you cannot tech throws at all, period. So be correct with the timing all you want, be correct with the guess all you want. If you're holding block, you cannot tech a throw. Now, this is because you're holding the button. So if you're blocking and then get thrown, you can let go of block and then tech. But you cannot mash a tech while you're blocking actively. So if you see it, you got to react quick, let go of the block, and then hit the appropriate button. Now, there also is command grabs. So command grabs cannot be teched at all. If you get grabbed, you get grabbed. That's it. No option for you to tech out. Command grabs, unfortunately, are kind of rare in Mortal Kombat 1. Reiko example here, he just dunks you on your head. Command grabs in this game are also highs, just like regular throws. So regular throw here, command grab here. So a neutral duck will beat them. Now, Reiko specifically, for the cost of 2 meters, can get a mid grab. So that is when you cannot neutral duck. It's very expensive, but if you know they're trying to gimmick you out, that is potentially a round over right there. Also, this is even rarer yet, some cameos have throws. So like Goro has a crouch throw. So if you are crouching specifically, or in the middle of combos, you can combo into it, he will throw your butt just all the way across the screen. And yes, just FYI, you can combo after that throw. So throws are a very important building block of Mortal Kombat in your offense. Doesn't matter what archetype you are, if you're a 50-50 character, if you're a full screen zoner, whatever you are and whatever you want to do, you will still have to rely on throws. So hopefully armed with this knowledge, you can do it better. So now a quick note on combos in Mortal Kombat 1. So everyone loves combos, get your big damage in, all that kind of stuff, right? We all love it. We all love it. But the thing is, you got to know some of the rules of combos, because even though Mortal Kombat 1 is very freeform, there is a few things to take note of. One, and this is obvious, this is just basically how every fighting game works, is damage scaling. Like say, Garrus' Sandstorm move here does 50 damage. But if we use it here in our combo, after a little scaling, now it does 40 damage. And further down the line, less and less and less damage it would do, right? It's part of the reason, why we don't have touch-of-death combos in the game necessarily, because every hit does less than the previous hit. And you'll find that most combos, even if like the most insane amount of cameo calls and assists and everything, they will eventually cap out usually around 40 or with all sorts of resources, maybe 50%, because the damage scaling will just get so insane by the end of the combo. Now, a different kind of scaling is gravity scaling. A big part of Mortal Kombat is juggles and launches. And the more you juggle and launch, the harder it gets to juggle and launch. Basically, every time you hit the opponent in the air, and especially moves keyed to launch opponents as it stands, like say Garrus' Sandblast while they're already in the air, it gets more and more difficult to keep them airborne. So say this starter here with Garrus. The one launcher off the basic hit, sure, and then we're doing Sandblast to launch again. So we get a very big pop-up, but every successive pop-up is just not going to be as high. So the first time we re-juggle here, sure, easy enough, but then the enemy starts falling too fast. And then we got to cut our losses, right? So we have to assume the more we juggle, the faster they're going to fall. Then we're not going to launch up as high as the initial launch ups. So we have to make choices. How are we going to enter combo? So basic example here, right? So we cannot infinitely just keep looping and relaunching the enemy. So let's use this as an example here. So we're going to launch them, our launcher 1. The sandblast is effectively launcher 2. Dash forward. Try to launch them again, right? And now, since we keep relaunching the gravity, they don't launch as high as they did the first time, and they fall to the ground faster and faster and faster. So we'll try to get a third rep in there. And by the end of it, they just fall out, right? We cannot keep it going. So keep in mind when you're trying to create your combos, a lot of the best damage you can get is while the enemy is still on the ground. Because while they're still grounded, they have not subjected themselves to any launches, and therefore, when you get your first launch in, that'll basically be the good stuff. You'll get the full purity of it, as you will. So try to get as much damage in on the ground as much as possible before you start juggling the enemy, because each successive juggle makes the combo harder and harder and harder to achieve. So for the previous example combo, let's show you how I would end this now, because I know I can't get that third explosion rep. I'll just substitute Garrus's grab in at the end. And there we go. We got an easy combo, right? And honestly, considering we didn't spend any meter on it, 30% is pretty alright. A big part of making combos in Mortal Kombat is almost like puzzles. Like you're trying to figure out which strings work with what other scenarios. So don't be afraid to hit the lab, hit training mode, and just play around with it, right? Now check out your move list, see everything you got, what works with what, and just start trying to put it all together. Like one idea I'll leave you with, right? So Garrus' Sand Tornado. So if it hits normally, well, it hits normally, right? But if you hit in a very specific angle, it'll, instead of hitting normally, launch the enemy towards you. While say this would connect normally here, it is a 3-hit combo. Since it's hitting directly on them, it blows them away. But if we can create the right amount of distance, like say here with forward 2-4, and then we go for it, it hits a little further out because we can aim it, and then it bounces the enemy back into us. And naturally enough from there, then we can start creating our own custom combos. So here we go. This is a little example for you, right? Get the wheels turned in your head. That's a lot of damage, by the way. But yeah, so hit training mode, figure it out. Now that you know the rules of combos and gravity scaling, hopefully you can figure out your own good stuff. Now let's talk cameos. This is like the single most significant feature of the game. Now, to note before we even get into it, I do have a whole video going over the entire roster of cameos and everything they can do. You can find that linked either at the end of the video or in the video description. I highly suggest you please check it out, as it'll help inform you on what these characters are capable of. But now, that said, let's talk about the basics. So your cameo, long story short, is your assist. Except they're multiple assists. And they're also your throw, too, on top of that, right? So they do a lot. Now, there's all sorts of calls. So here, Sector, we have 3 basic options. We have a flamethrower, we have the teleport punch, and we have the missile launch. So the thing about that is there's multiple kinds of cameo assist calls. So there's summons and ambushes. So summons, when we call, say, the flamethrower. Notice how Liu Kang strikes a bit of a pose here, right? Showing his martial arts dominance. So that is what we call a summon. So you are in place, you cannot move, and the assist will do their thing. Much the same here, that teleport punch. Liu Kang strikes the pose, Sector does his thing. And of course, it's a pretty good thing, because it launches and you can get follow-ups from it, right? So cameos are very powerful. Liu Kang certainly normally can't launch people from full screen normally. That's the power of Sector. And Liu Kang very much appreciates Sector's services because he can combo from it, right? So that's a big part of it, right? So this is a tool he normally never would have. So there's summons where you strike the pose and you do your thing. And there's ambushes where you hit the button and they just come out. Like you can be doing any old thing. It does not matter. You can be in the middle of a move. You could even be blocking, although not in block stun specifically. If you're actively being hit, then you can't do it. But as long as you're not actively blocking or actively being hit, you can call your ambush. And that is the power of the ambush mechanic. So say Sector here. He shoots a rocket as his ambush. And once again, I can be doing any old thing while I call Sector. So let's say I'm shooting a lot of fireballs. Liu Kang, sort of proficient at it, right? He's one of the better fireball characters in the game. And while I'm throwing my fireballs, I will call the Sector Cameo, and he's going to be launching his own missiles to help my zoning game. So now Sector's quick overview then, right? What does he offer me? So now, if I get, say, a hit in, I know he can pop people up for me and I can get combos. That's great. I know if I'm in mid-range here and I don't necessarily have like very long-reaching buttons, I can rely on his flamethrower to toast people for me. That's great. Also, by the way, in the middle of combos, it does force people to stand against their will. They get no knockdown, which is very strong. And I know he can shoot all sorts of rockets. So any character that wants additional zoning, it can help my zoning. I could say knock them out and force them to wake up into the rockets. All sorts of tricks there. And Sector is one of the characters that has effectively what you would call an ultimate, in that he can drain his whole bar and he can get a homing rocket. So wherever the opponent is, the rocket will do their best to track them. So that's one of the things about Kameos. Normally, moves cost half a bar. And after it's used, the bar will begin to regenerate. So here, flamethrower, we use it, and you see here, it's regenerating, right? So this dictates how often we can call it. And you need at least half of it up to do a call. If you don't have at least half, you get nothing. The thing is, all of them take half, but they all don't regenerate equally. Look at the flamethrower regeneration rate here. Which, you know, it's going at a decent enough pace. And look at the missile. So it's not regenerating right away. There's a little bit of a delay. And now when it does regenerate, okay, now we're going, right? So it's the preclude that you can't just spam it as much as you could say the flamethrower, because it's a much more powerful move. And effectively, this is applicable for all the Kameos, right? Like, let's look at Kano here. So his summon is a big laser. And if you're a character that's deficient in fireballs, not necessarily Liu Kang, but someone doesn't have the best fireball, Kano's fireball is among the best in the game. Very fast, covers the whole screen, high damage. It's great. So if you're a character with like a poor fireball or even no fireball game, Kano's here to say, no, you're now covered in that aspect. And more so, he also has an ambush. So once again, you can do it while you're doing any other move that tosses even more fireballs. So he throws out these knives, and if they connect, you can actually start a combo from that. And then he, of course, naturally has the Kano ball. So he'll toss himself out, spin out, and a lot of Kameos have their own unique rules. So Kano, you can hold it. So he can just be here and be a threat for a good while. So say I knock you down, call Kano. Now you got that nasty Kano just in your face, right? Like, that's scary. I can let go at any time. And when I do, he's going to come and blow you up. So you're going to be scared to hit buttons. And if you do hit buttons, and say you do hit buttons, right? I can have him save me. So as long as I'm holding him and he's behind me, he's a threat, and he can blow you up for even daring to hit a button. So now I'm scared. I'm going to block everything. And that's exactly when I'm going to throw you directly into Kano. Maybe the throw won't do as much damage, but you're scared, and that's a possibility. Basically, whatever you're looking for in a game plan, a Kameo is there to help you out. You can either enhance your already given strengths of the character, or perhaps you can shore up some weaknesses. So like Kung Lao. Kung Lao is not hurting for overheads. He's got all sorts of overheads, right? But his ability to threaten you with lows is kind of bad. He only really kind of has the basic stuff everyone has. Enter Striker. Striker says, whatever your deficiency in overhead or lows, I'm here to help you out. Striker has a low, Striker has an overhead. Writes itself, right? So say stand 3 for Kung Lao is high overhead. So if you block, you're like, well, I blocked the first one, I better block the second one or I'm going to get blown up, right? So then you can call the first one, then call Striker, and he goes for a low. Basic idea, right? And also he has ambushes as well that toss grenades that eat up multiple parts of the screen, which also, say that one overhead here, normally Kung Lao by himself cannot combo from it, but with the help of a handy assist and a handy ambush, now he totally can combo from it, right? And almost 30%. Not a bad chunk of change. We talked about earlier how Liu Kang's good at that whole fireball thing, right? Johnny Cage decidedly is not. He has no fireballs. So how about Motaro? Motaro reflects projectiles. Not only defeats them, it throws them back at the enemy. On top of that, why not some teleports too as well, right? So if you're looking to deal with the screen in some very funny ways, Motaro absolutely helps out. Like Goro has a straight up unblockable attack, right? Like the world's your oyster as far as like the Kameos go. Another important part of the Kameos is the health. They actually change your character's health values. So right now Sub-Zero says I have 950 health, right? Now notice that I have changed my assist here. So I'm now double Sub-Zero, I guess, right? And I now have 1050 health. So I have 100 more health overall. Because Goro is a Kameo that takes away health. Sub-Zero is a Kameo that adds health. Add this to the fact that characters have their own distinct health values. You can wind up some pretty disparate healths, right? So Natara here, 850, and Xiao with Jax, 1200. That's a significant difference. So think of it this way. Basically, the stronger the assist, for the most part, the less health they'll give you, because Goro can give you the world off basically everything. For characters that are a bit more focused on a single aspect, like Jax, he's very much about either just giving you more combo damage and unblockable, and that's about it. So he'll give you more health. So overall, cameos are an incredibly, it's the most important choice besides your actual character in the game. So that's the lifeblood of the game, and you gotta play around. I'm sure you won't figure out what works for you day one, but there's so many options. You're going to be stressing over everything for a good while, because do you want high-low mix-up that Striker gives you? Do you want a freeze for easy combos like Frost and Sub-Zero would give you? Do you want just an all-rounder presence like, say, Cyrax? There's a lot of ways to play and a lot of ways to enhance your character's game plan. Cameos are cool. Now, another new mechanic to Mortal Kombat 1 is the uppercut jump. So the uppercut, just down two, right? Classic since the early 90s. Everyone loves this stuff because single hit does a lot of damage. What's not to love? And for most characters, it's sort of your dedicated anti-air. Just hope you time it right? So there's a new way to use it, and that involves punishing attacks and spending a lot of meter. So now, if you ever get a punish or a counter hit with it, so this could be any attack, say you ducked under, it could be a jump attack, you can then hit up and block and jump up into the air. Or conversely, more helpful for combos, you can up forward and block as well. So after this, it takes 2 meters, but naturally, you can start comboing. So say you're up against that person that just jumps non-stop, right? Now for 2 meters, we can get a good deal more damage than we used to get before. So it's not the most meter efficient, sure. Like the amount of damage output compared to what you're putting into it, 2 meters for that, right, is not a smart use of meter by the numbers. But by the numbers, sometimes you gotta not count that, because you have the uppercut here and now, and if you can get like 30% off an uppercut now instead of the usual 14, that could be the difference between winning the game or not. So it's not an efficient use of damage to meter ratio, but it lets you get a big hit in when normally you never got a big hit other than the single strike. So for uppercut spammers everywhere, you have a very powerful tool in the toolbox now, right? Also to note, when you do it, you don't have to do it immediately at any point during the initial hit or the recovery of the uppercut. You can do it. So if they're at a very high jump angle, you might want to wait a split second just so you can get a better shot at hitting them. So once again, 2 meters off any punish or counter hit, and once you get that uppercut, just hit up and block and you'll leap to the air and get a fancy combo. Now to talk about reversals, specifically off blocks and while waking up off the ground. So Mortal Kombat is weird in a way that reversals, only special moves can have reversal timing, and also cameos. So General Xiao has this move here, 2-2, -7 on block. And our stand 1, 7 frame startup. So what can we do with that? Exactly nothing. He gets the block in time, because we cannot do a normal with a reversal timing. Now Li Mei has a special move here. We'll just go back 3. And the enhanced version is actually 7 frame startup. So now against this exact same string, reversal timing, that is a punish. The reversals come out the exact frame they're pressed if they're special moves specifically. Also, the same here for some cameo assists. Notice how she glows kind of white here. This denotes, when done as a reversal, this cameo is invincible startup. So say General Xiao has a string here. Between the second and third hits, there is a small gap. And in Mortal Kombat tradition, you can absolutely armor through it if you know what's coming, right? However, maybe we don't necessarily have the meter at the time, right? It's not always on the table. So during this thing where we know there's a small gap, we do reversal timing call our cameo, we gain that invincibility, and we can punish it. So it's more like, say, Street Fighter in that way, using invincibility frames. Now, to note, not every cameo has a move that gives you invincibility when done as reversal. So just keep that in mind, right? That'd be pretty crazy. Now, here's one of the big differences here. So off a block string, you cannot get invincibility off cameos except for a precious few characters, Sub-Zero being one of them. Like, say, General Xiao here. When there's a gap here in our offense, he will try to call Frost. except decidedly she's not invincible like Sub-Zero is. So Xiao just gets hit, and that's all there is to it. However, any assist that's a summon, where you strike that pose, compared to say an ambush, when you do it as a wake-up attack, you will get a brief amount of invincibility. So you can see here, that glow, the same as we had before, right? And if I try to strike him, then it's going to go through him because he's invincible, and we get hit by the cameo. Now keep in mind, some moves are better than other moves when it comes to this. Moves that are faster are definitely better than moves that are slower, especially because the invincibility window is sort of not huge, right? So you need that character to cover you very quick. If I just delay my attack, I can hit both of them. So you want someone who's quite quick to help you out in that way. So keep in mind for standing reversals, quick cameos can be very good that are invincible, like say Sub-Zero here. Normally you would not be able to do anything after blocking Rain's move here. But if you have Sub-Zero, you can invincible between the first and second hits, punish the enemy. Conversely, someone like Jack, slightly faster attack if you're using it as a wake-up. So if you're trying to like delay or whatever, you have less time, you're more susceptible to getting bopped. So keep all that in mind. Just various frame data rules, only special moves, not normal moves, come out the frame they are stated to when done as a reversal. And cameos are also very strong as reversals as well, on top of the usual armored attacks. Because every character has something that's armored, takes a bar, right? That's universal. This is new to Mortal Kombat 1. They can also use cameos in a defensive manner. And that is the beginner's guide. So this is a lot of the core gameplay mechanics of everything you will find in Mortal Kombat 1. And actually, of course, check the channel out. There'll be more Mortal Kombat guides and all sorts of videos for you to peruse. Especially check out Choose a Main, Choose a Cameo, where I go over the roster in depth for both the main characters and the cameo characters. You can find that linked at the end of the video or in the video description. So even right now, here, before we check out, please, I beseech you, settings, controls, see this thing called release check? Make sure that is turned all the way off. If things ever feel weird to you when you're playing the game, this is the reason why. I do not know why they have it on by default, but just turn that off and trust me, life will get a lot easier for you. But yeah, Mortal Kombat 1, in a lot of ways, is both a drastic departure from Mortal Kombat and also a return to form. So it's very weird in that way. A lot of the classic characters play the classic way. And things like, movement, wave dashing, all that kind of stuff, that's the way it should be. That's great. But then you toss in cameos and all their wackiness, and you just have a really wild game on your hands. And for the best part, this is a really fun game in my opinion, and the cameos add so much to it. So that said, if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has informed you and taught you just how Mortal Kombat works and lead you on into your NetherRealm Studios game journey. Besides all that, if you could drop a like, that'd be greatly appreciated. And I guess we're at the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some Mortal Kombat.